Right, okay, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Excited today because we have Gareth Jones and Saif Fouda from Saqaya. This is a blast from the past going on, and talk a bit about why that is and all that. But thanks for coming in.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So we know each other. Well, kind of. We do now. We've got a recruitment background.
Shared history.
Yeah, shared history. You might not look it, but because he looks just the same as he did
I'll take
20 years ago. But
Safe will tell you I haven't changed.
yeah,
I've mellowed, I promise.
the man, the myth, the legend.
Thank you.
Gareth Jones.
Thank you.
Great to see you again.
It is wonderful to see you.
My first boss from after graduating from university.
Same here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you forgiven me yet?
I don't know about that. I've spoken a lot on here about it, actually, how it was like the greatest grounding for running a business and learning how to communicate to people, and finding out what people are looking for and matching that up, and gathering requirements from clients and things like that. It was so intense all the time, and talking to people, you learn to, even on the phone, you knew who was lying to you and who wasn't.
Yeah.
It was a skill set that has been very valuable over the years, and probably owe you quite a lot for that.
Thank you.
So, Saqaya.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
So I've always been in recruitment. I started out in IT recruitment many years ago. It's like almost 20 years now. And I sort of, pivoted away from that because of, when I first started out, the financial crisis in 2008. But I've always had it in the back of my mind that I wanted to go back to it at one point. And I have one of my best friends is Cal, the other co-founder of Saqaya, and he was working for one of the biggest outsourcing companies within tech in the UK. And he's always telling me about the work that they do, his ex, EY, and he's all about, the technology and delivery side of things.
Sure.
But whenever he described the model for me, it's, I always thought, oh, this sounds like recruitment. Like it doesn't, I know it's tech, but it just sounds in its heart, it's a recruitment model. So from my side, I was always sort of wanted to get back to it. And I thought there wouldn't be a bad person for me to get into that side of things like him, because he covers the stuff that I don't know. So he knows all about delivery, the credibility when it comes to that, the sort of background in consultancy. So I was pecking his head in, always I reckon we can do this. And we're both originally from Egypt. So we came here for university, and then, we became sort of successful in different areas.
Yeah.
And when it was sort of coincidental when he was going through a very tough period when the war in Ukraine took place, and a lot of their teams sort of went offline, and they were struggling to look after them, and the business was going through some changes, and I said I think maybe this is an opportunity now for us to look at Egypt. So I started doing a bit of the feasibility study in terms of, do we have the talent in the first place? What's the quality like when it comes to that? Is it scalable in terms of numbers, communication skills? What would be our selling points in entering a very crowded market? And it was almost like perfect in terms of a checklist. Numbers, 120 million population, 80,000 ICT graduates a year, huge. Egypt was becoming the center of where all these new VCs were investing in, because you would try it out in Egypt in terms of a startup idea, and then you would take it to the entire Middle East after that. The other aspect, which was extremely important, is the time zone, because it was either Eastern Europe or you would go to India and Pakistan for outsourcing, and India and Pakistan were almost working to a different day. Egypt is almost exactly the same time zone as most of Europe.
Yeah.
So this is
It's a key differential. So it's something that even surprised me when we first started talking. Because you don't think of Egypt being 2 hours ahead. That's all.
No.
And a lot of offshore is India. The problem with that being that 5-hour difference, it doesn't lend itself to agile development.
Yeah.
So there's so many hands-offs. So the concept of it being cheaper in India doesn't really play through because it takes longer. So I know what Saif's been very kind, because he would have thought the initial idea and thought, I can do this better. Because he just thought, I can do this and I can do this better. And that's what he's done. And what he's describing is the features that Egypt has that are advantages, distinctly in that space.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it from I started really diving into it because maybe it's built on recruitment, but it's not, because it's more like long-term engagements and really embedded teams into these companies that are from far away. So getting the cohesion between the two is very important. And that was the bit that I needed to learn, because back in the day, recruitment is like, you find a guy, you place him, and, off you go. But this was, this is a team for this company that you're looking after and making sure that integrates quite well. So that was the next challenge.
Yeah.
But the key, the good things from Egypt's point of view is the nature of the town that we deal with, and one of the things that have really made them stand out, and the feedback that we later receive from clients, is the level of them being proactive and wanting to be embedded in the culture of the clients and really connecting with them. And the first time we saw it is, we hold an annual event and we bring our clients and future clients down to Egypt, to our tech hub, and they, our clients were meeting their teams for the first time, and it's almost like they've been working together for years. Real camaraderie between them, and our guys are really invested, and they saw themselves as Saqaya employees, but even the logos of where the workspace is the client's logos, and they felt that they were an extension of the client.
Yeah.
And what the other thing as well that I thought when we first initially came about with it is, all right, there's a lot of collaboration between them. There'll be a lot of travel. Yeah. It does help as well that Egypt has amazing weather, and there is endless stuff to do in terms of touristy stuff. So come down, you visit your team, spend a time with them, and then there's the pyramids and all the museums.
Clients like to visit.
Yeah, so it's like an added bonus. So it made perfect sense from that point of view.
And also, Egypt being far from it being seen in like an exotic and unusual place to solve client problems, right? Because of 500,000 stem cell grads every year, right? It's the number one country in Africa for AI. There's government-led initiatives. So there's a government-led initiative around AI by 2030. They've got to hit certain targets about AI engineers. So they've adopted AI far quicker than we've probably seen over here. So which is why PwC, IBM, they're now building delivery hubs out there that are huge. And both those businesses have addressed that AI is a core function. That core function is delivered out of Egypt. So if you're dealing with either a large consultancy or a vendor, and you're talking about the next steps of AI, that senior AI engineering talent is probably being delivered from Egypt in some expertise. And there's a huge shortage in the UK for those skills. And those are probably, because there hasn't been the adoption as quick, people are less curious. But also, as Saif says, there is a cultural difference in wanting to be engaged with the client.
Right.
Because all the major universities are English speaking in Egypt. So the cultural fit is easier.
Yeah.
The communication skills are better. You have access to more senior hires, but the same who culturally fit. Experience about nearshoring in Ukraine, they tend to a little bit colder, a little bit less engagement, but also a little bit more rigid in the way they work. We're doing it our way. So therefore, it's very much we're a client, you're a supplier. But if we like to get embedded, so we're an extension of the business. So there's no separation in terms of, it's that one team.
Yeah.
And which is going to make workflows, production, getting where you want easier.
Slightly different from the traditional kind of outsourcing.
This is what Callan, Saif had been, very, very clever to sort of embed in the business, because the recruitment team look for people who have that DNA, who have those personal qualities, and therefore right for the business, because it's one thing Cal prides himself on. that those people will be an extension of your culture and your business and work in your way. So I think that's a huge USP for us.
Yeah. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised because Saif was saying to me, it's 2 hours. And I was...
Well, it's actually like even 1 hour. When
well, you do a lot of work in Europe as well, so it's 1 hour difference.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know you're from Egypt, but that doesn't sound right. I'm showing you, he's like, guys, it's 2 hours.
Yeah.
It's 2 hours. Are you sure? There's like a lot of our conversations still to happen. But I mean, we've really seen that the curiosity levels to go and then play and adopt with AI is a cultural thing. But the fact, what that's given them now is it's so far ahead of the curve as where people are introducing AI now. What they're looking for is senior engineers who've seen it, done it, because every CTO is in the same situation at the moment. How do we adopt it? And how can we have confidence that these people aren't just doing it on a tooling level? These people are doing it tried and trusted with confidence. And Egypt actually plays really well into that space.
I think, what served us quite well, and especially in this sort of, crazy times when it comes to everyone sort of, playing AI or trying to join that, bandwagon, is that we were just at the sweet spot in terms of when we started and all these new tools came about, that we didn't see them like if you would say, our competitors or similar companies that are much bigger than us. We didn't see them as a threat. We almost saw them as a way for us now to really, understand the capabilities and really, utilize the strength we have from the knowledge, from Cal, for example, who's more on the delivery front and understands what client needs are and the requirements for that. And then really adopt it and create our own methodology in terms of how can you then utilize all these new tools and all these new ideas, but in a proper way that actually makes business gains rather than just adopting for the sake of not, formal. And this is the part that, we've already tested out with a couple of clients is, okay, it's now a new way of doing things. We're not trying to, make slight changes to the current model to just incorporate AI. Let's launch it as almost like a new service, how we do what we do, but utilizing AI. So we've had clients that come to us, for example, that wanted to do a new project. That was maybe, I would say, about a year and a half ago. And we would have discussions what would be needed to do that kind of project. And it would be like, a team of, let's say, 6-7 people. And that's the kind of budget that we would require. And then that will stall because of finance, for example. So a lot of these clients now came back.
Yeah.
And we engaged again with them. It's like, all right, how about a new proposal in terms of we can do the same thing, but in a different way. And, but, using the methodology that we've created, which is how do we bring these tools in to then reduce the cost and the people that you would need to do that work, but at the same time with the right guardrails and the right, models, etc., that you need, so you can achieve that without any of the negative implications. Because a lot of companies are, that sounds great, you can get AI to do all this development, all that, but then a mistake happens or something is not done, and you crash and you lose. And that's what been a lot of the resistance, especially from enterprise level. So when we tried it out, it's almost like we taken that away and we're replacing it with a much leaner team. And that has proved highly successful. And that is, what we're pitching now for a lot of our clients, especially the ones that on a smaller level that, have a lot of ideas. How do you now go forward with most of the advantages and the benefits of all these cool, super cool tools, but with minimizing the amount of risk and us really working on partnership. And we always pride ourselves on the relationship we have with our clients. We have a model in terms of risk reward. So we tie in ourselves. We're not just providing you with a team and managing that. We're actually tying ourselves into your outcomes. And we are, part of our gains from a contractual point of view is based on what you achieve outcomes wise. So they feel like you're suggesting something new, you're guiding us through it, you're delivering it as well, through your model. But at the same time, you're with us all the way to outcome side. So that is what was sort of really differentiating us.
That model where, if your quality is that strong and you're willing to go outcome based when it makes sense, it just speaks volumes. to the quality of the team. But in terms of to take what Saif said and then to put into a business context at the moment, we're coming out of a period of 2 years of people not spending, not having any money, just not being able to hire. The IT recruitment market in the UK has been pretty poor, and there isn't that level of spend. But if you're looking, let's say you're in the SaaS market at the moment, you're standing on the precipice of something could be really bad because of your clients may, through tools, be able to go and create what they need.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of work that needs doing to either platforms or SaaS or products or applications for you to stay or iterate or drive, right? And people, the cost is prohibitive for doing so because there's large, expensive teams of contractors that need to come in. And then it's catch-22. How do I adopt AI? How do I need to get BAU work done? Budget constraints are tight. If I'm a PE-backed business, I've still got return profit. And this is where Saqaya fits in. You want greater product engineering velocity. You're mindful of the cost. It's my name above the door if you're the CTO. So I've got to have a level of quality and confidence again. So someone that's going to, write a win-win deal. So then and then these guys are an extension of the business. They're on this, we can keep it agile. But then what really helps is the fact that we start to lead the fact that, okay, if we take Saif's example of what we've done recently in terms of doing AI pilots and helping people do AI native work, and the extension of that, there's a framework around it because we've done it and been it before.
Yeah.
Whereas most CTOs are actually playing with it or doing a bit of tooling, they're playing around at their own time, and they still don't have the confidence to introduce it to the business and get the full benefits. Or those that have halfway housed it and hasn't really solved the problems. What Calvin, Saif and the team have come up with is frameworks, guideworks, a playbook off the shelf, the guide that full confidence that goes through how will you be safe to install? We've got the battle scars, so you don't have to go the other way. How documentation works, how the security aspect is affected, and how we're talking about how to guarantee that and work with that and make that part of the wraparound. So if you take a particular fintech who've done this, the piece of work to build the application would be they would be taking 7 contractors, IT contractors. Right, that's an expensive spend, right, on rates. Yeah. And it would take them where we've got to in what they would typically get in 7 months. So I don't know, what's that, 49 billable contractor months, right? So that's a chunk of change. Saif is a team of 2 that's completed that in 4 weeks. So there's a significant cost saving anyway. But that makes it we've done like 10x, 20x development there.
Yeah.
So if you're a business in the UK at the moment that needs to make these kind of changes, and what's stopping you is either A, you don't have a full confidence, or you don't have the in-house internal knowledge, or you have budget constraints on top of that making it work, and then also you don't want to be the guinea pig yourself, but you're on board for all the benefits. I think that's a natural play for us, and what Callum Saif have built leads naturally in that, because that's going to unlock a lot of value for businesses. And then also, in terms of, it doesn't take work away from current teams, because you're putting the business on a safer footing. Because if they don't iterate, if they don't do these changes, if they don't upgrade these platforms, if they don't create new applications, what happens?
You're left behind, don't you?
Yeah.
We were talking to a lady called Caroline Monk. She's a senior partner at accountancy firm.
Yeah.
And she was saying how the role of the accountant is changing to the point where things that could be classed as data entry, they don't have to do anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's all kind of done. So the personal skills of the accountant now is more important.
Yeah.
Because this is a lot of their work that take days is done in less than a second. So it's like, well, how does this work? How do we adapt we've talked about being agile quite a lot,
Yeah.
IT and
Yeah.
being able to react and move and to keep that cadence going and then the companies that actually think about that, go along with it, they become the bigger companies.
Yes. That's a really good point, that, James, because what that does is our methodology is centered around senior engineers who are in the loop, human in the loop. So we're not saying AI tools come in and replace, because we've got the capacity to have experienced, very cost-effective senior engineers who can run these pilots, run these foods, backed up with QAs, so on and so forth. You've got that expertise that oversees this, and then you're able to, we can plug that in.
Yeah.
Whereas for, let's say you're a CTO in Manchester and you want to go and hire that person. Well, that's probably a three-month process and a lot of time and effort from BAU, right? Whereas that person could be with you in 2 weeks, who's culturally as good a fit as once you've gone. You're still going to go through the interview process, but you're having that interview process a week, 2 weeks after you've had the conversation with Saif and Cal.
Yeah.
And we signed off.
Yeah.
So that person who matches your company culture brief, right? Who's been at senior, done it before, and this thing that's now going to save you X amount of, thousands of pounds, is on board in hand. Whereas if you're in Manchester, you're going to start this process, it's going to probably take 3 months, and then probably let's say at final stages, because everyone wants them, because they're a very rare breed, they're probably going to have 3, 4, 5 offers on the table. Yeah. So what do you do? You could start again
on their side. Yeah, I think from one of what you mentioned in terms of how this is impacting something like accounting. It's I went through a period when I was watching every possible thing there is about AI to see this new world that we're going to live in, and it's either you get the sort of doom and gloom of like everybody will be jobless, or you get like we will have infinite resources, but the truth is always somewhere in the middle. But because I'm involved in sort of different industries and from completely different job descriptions across the companies and the clients that we work with, it is a new world that we're going into, completely new world. But it's a new world from the point of view of these are job titles will change, and how people go about their work will 100% change. Like you said, with the accountant's job is no longer data entry and making sure that the figures are put the right way to produce the P&L and to produce the balance sheet or to do the audit. It's now being able to manage a relationship with the client, so to explain the work that these tools have done and how this can shape up what the client needs. And I think this is the direction that we're noticing now, even across clients, is that a lot of the barriers previously when it comes to costs, when it comes to technology, or when it comes to risk, a lot of these are being eliminated. So me as a company, for example, as a recruitment company, I'll give you, this is something that we've had. So we've always used off-the-shelf solutions when it comes to CRM systems, right?
Yeah.
And they're never exactly what we need, but it's sort of like what you have to make great, and we've tried them all. But we would have never thought about 5 years ago creating our own. It would have never been. It's so costly. It's by the time you recoup the cost that you've done, you must be operating on like 20, 50 million pound revenue for this to make sense. So it made 0 sense, right?
Yeah.
But with these new tools, we are able, with this new world that we're moving in, we are able now to use our creativity and what we actually need and what we see from what we understand of this recruitment market and how we can gain an advantage. We're able to create the tools and the CRM that fits our business objectives, rather than making do with that, and that is what is directing how we operate our business. And I think even with technology companies, that we work with, previously there's a lot of like, oh yeah, of course we'd love to make these upgrades and make these new systems and about the cost. So we have to make do with this version of how things are running, even though there was complaints from clients. That's not being eliminated. So there's a huge focus now of actually focus on what you intended to do from day one. Is you want to produce a service or a product to a certain clientele. You're not just purely focusing on that. And the better you are at this and understanding your client and understanding that market, is making it, you can feed that information and creating these platforms and these services that you need to service them. So before it was sort of like machines are going to take over from humans. But the way I'm feeling, maybe I'm being optimistic for, too much, but I think this is actually what will allow us to be even more human, because now you get to spend time understanding and connecting with you, and because of like
Be more proactive for your client, can't you?
yeah, and because of the amount of AI slop that will come out, because everybody will be able to do platforms and websites and all kinds of things, it's the ones that will actually care more about their clients and understand them more and use that to direct.
That's where that senior engineering talent is even more important. So, essentially, a really good point there is that what AI will do is the type of jobs are going to change. That's inevitable. So it's the people who move with that. I used to discuss this with Tim Olsen. So I was fortunate to deliver Europe's largest automation project. Tim Olsen is a really good friend and thought leader in that space. It came out, and we discussed that. Does it replace jobs? Well, what it does is, if very repetitive tasks are carried out by bots, right? The human element, people's jobs become more human. And what connects us and spending more time, being more human is not a bad thing for anyone. If you think about just for mental health.
There's a thirst for humanity.
Yeah.
I think.
Sure. And then also, and Saif can bear witness to this, so the more time I can spend being human and selling and less time doing anything IT related, I'm still punching my screen now.
Yeah. Need that AI agent just to be working alongside us to make sure he's not complaining.
My thing is, I love human. I love that connection. It's the best thing about my job.
Yeah.
So being able to help people.
Do you know when we created the CRM? You would remember this as well from Rullion days. Do you remember Adapt?
Adapt.
Yeah. I remember
Adapt.
So I would just to run a search in our database to see what we had in terms of like C# engineers, right? I used to have to run it at 4 p.m. before, like towards the end of the day, and the results come in the next day.
Right. Yeah.
And if you wrote it slightly wrong, the search, the next day you'd be like, it wrote something completely different. I have to start over again.
Yeah.
That time now, like that, I think that's a sort of a small example of like all of this now is gone. These limitations, like everyone can just purely focus on what you're actually trying to do. I no longer need to be an expert on how to search a database. To be able to take that now and how to connect it with the right clients and manage the relationship, and that is now the main focus.
You think that's fine? I remember, faxing over my jobs.
Oh. That's what they were for me.
Faxing over my jobs to JobServe. Me and Steve Clark.
Someone used
staying
to,
late, Jonesy. Yeah, faxing
print them
my
out
jobs up
and then post them all out and stuff like that.
Just
The Adapt is quite a funny thing actually, because we had to fill in everything. You were quite big on data and bringing it in, and I probably questioned it as always, because I'm inherently a little bit lazy. And you said, no, James, the data is the value. So the value in everything we do is down to the data that we acquire.
Yeah.
And then we can use that in our processes.
yeah. Well, you've gone into marketing now. What's really funny is that any marketing person now would talk about the value is in personalization and segmentation.
Yeah.
So it's being relevant. So then if we can what recruitment did is recruitment sort of didn't see itself as a marketing business.
No.
And marketing is a huge part of recruitment. And I really enjoyed the psychology and the access about that. And if you think about it, I was very lucky that I had someone so talented as Leah, who once again, high performing teams, is not only getting the right people on the bus, but it's getting the right people in the right seat in the bus. So you had a wonderful individual who lived our core values, who lived the DNA.
Yeah.
But she was superb at marketing. So being able to take someone who was a graduate, who worked at Clinton Cards, who was coming in and wanted to be part of this team, but hated cold calling. But she was a brilliant marketer. And if you think about, we went on a run where I probably went to every presentation I did, and we're talking about going, at the time we were called Littlewoods, which was very group. I mean, we won Barclays Wealth, at Churchill One Place and Canary Wharf. next to a canal in Altrincham. We had it all on exclusive, and we all win chunks of BBC, EDS. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, at that time, it was quite unusual. We had gone from a pack that went, "Hello, we're Rullion, and we were formed in so and so, and it's like rubbish." And you will remember me being in the boardroom with Leah, just creating individual, all about them, that spoke their language, that was in their tone. We'd even matched their colours, we'd even matched their language, we'd gone through that. And people didn't think like this in recruitment at the time, but then it's a natural to take data, find common value, common things, and then...
I think the data aspect, I think, like, I know exactly what you mean by it, because one of the things, like, and I didn't understand it at the time, and I just thought this guy's just, making my life difficult for no reason. In terms
I did enjoy making it.
It's like, why are you not putting that? Every bit of information you get from every call, put it in the system, because that then shapes up how you do things. Right? And I was like, I'm trying to place, I'm trying to get a deal here, I don't have time to put all this stuff. But then one of the things that I've learned, and it sort of stuck with me, and a lot of the things I learned at the time that I complained about, as you sort of grow older and you get more experience, you go back and that makes sense now. So one of the things you always push out, get something out of every call. Like whenever you make a call, whether it's a candidate or a client, understand something from it that you use. So when you're speaking to a candidate, understand where else they're interviewing. So you understand. So this opens up your next business development leads to go out. The where they're currently working, because once they move, that becomes a business opportunity.
Yeah,
everything.
We call that when you speak to a client, even if they're not buying what they sell it, you're selling. What is it? What else are they buying that could go into? And put in all that data and then use it. But I mean, Adapt wasn't the best at
No,
data now to use it.
It's very early though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But
the concepts remain though.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, in every job I did since, I was like, do you have call logs?
Yeah.
Do you understand what's happened in the past? Because you leave, someone else is going to come back into it. You need to know the history of your conversations, because it's important how you start there with other things. And I started off, obviously, SEO with recruitment site. And every time I talk to a recruitment company that doesn't have their own vacancies on their own site, and I'm like, you've got to control the data. Don't rely on other places, and you can reduce your spend there by how good you are with your data. And
exactly, like putting candidates in the right way, being categorized and documenting the conversation that you have with them, because instead of every single time you get a new job or a new client, you're doing that entire work from scratch. You're not building on stuff that you've done previously because it's all recorded. So a candidate that you've spoken to in the past that wasn't suitable for this, new client comes in, because you've recorded it right, you straight away go to them instead of starting with an open net. Well, it's.
I went into client relationship stuff with software companies, and you would have them. No one would be recording anything. But I'd have every call that I'd ever made, communication, and I knew that the year before they were talking about having this issue with calculating tax on fuel or whatever it was at the time. And so then a few months before, I can see like, all right, how can we offer a solution for that? It was coming up, and then suddenly you become useful. And if you can see that using technology without having to do all that, it becomes really useful.
I think one thing for those environments as well is using that, is you're able to model success. So we know what works, we know what's right. So in that environment, you both grew up with, you knew what worked because it was happening in the seat next to you.
How many He's having seen it,
But also the type of calls, so you were hearing people overcoming objections, you knew the pattern of a good call, and people were able to model, life's about modelling. But it's funny how we seem to think that, like, the clues of what we should do in business and run people business, and all businesses are people businesses, I believe, anyway. Where that came out of, and where the story was behind it, when there's success. And I didn't adopt any great training from recruitment. I wouldn't say that was the difference. What I looked at is great people-led businesses and how they did it. So one of the biggest influences on my becoming quite a good sales leader at Rullion and later on was an Italian restaurant that I used to go to. Okay. And I'm not sure I've told this story. And the owner of the business, this old Italian guy, used to go in there on my own. He was single at the time, going and eat dinner on my own. Right? And obviously, being Italian, you can see him going and talking to the family. There's something wrong with him. Is he okay? I think so. Is. I think maybe his girlfriend's died, isn't it? Every night I'm at dinner. I'd be there in Hale eating at this place on my own, and they feel sorry for me. But do you know what it was? Is you notice this guy's great with people.
Yeah.
There's more lessons here than any cheesy recruitment training I'm going to do. So I studied him and I watched him because it was a wonderful business. So everyone that came into that restaurant, it was an experience. And he cared. And he cared in his experience. And it was natural. It wasn't false. But here's the interesting thing. You know, you're talking about story and data and everything. Like, new people come in and you know, oh, you've not been in before. So where are you and who are you and that name and all that thing. So you come back the next week, those people come back then. Hey, how are you doing? How are you, Julian? How are the kids? And so on and so on. And then it builds up, he knew who their team was.
Right.
And he was using it everything. So he felt a bit more special and a little bit thin, right? Now, at the same time as everyone is having, doesn't matter what the customer is, they're going to have the best experience, right? So I'd like to think at the time is the way we got into customers and we won some big partnerships and big deals, which for what was a predominantly vertical market-based team, and then people became account managers, and like Jody Marks and Simon and Chris and Umeruth and Pete Davey were massive accounts. I still speak to Pete Davey once a month. Yeah. What a gentleman, lovely guy. But look at Jody Marks. He's still dealing with those clients now. Fair play to him, great, because he really cared about those clients, and he wasn't a recruiter even then. He was a really good relationship builder, right?
Yeah. Saw him a few years ago at Warwick Castle. The playground, we were both watching our kids, and I was like, that guy looks really familiar.
He didn't look any different.
Do you know what? It's really interesting. You know, when you say in terms of how we did it differently, and you know, that's something that, you know, we're now bringing to Saqaya. We're seeing that it's making, you know, a huge difference. Is making that client feel that you're really in it with them, that you're not just sort of trying to sell them a short-term solution, and the fact that also what we are providing is always long-term. You know, it works with the long-term plans, but it's a few things, and you remember this stuff. It's like when you speak with your client, you tell them what you can do. You tell them what you can't do from the get-go. You don't overpromise. And I know it sounds very simple and straightforward, but it really does resonate.
You're the best things out though.
And I think this is like when I started working with Carl, even though I've known Carl for, you know, many years, but this in our work, it's almost like a common belief that we both have is, you know what, you've trusted us with your business, so that the least that we can do is be very honest and transparent with you. Not out of the kindness of our heart because we're just angels, is because that is the success in terms of a long term with this client that stays with you, grows with you. And there's nothing wrong. You used to like have a go at me sometimes where, mate, just tell them you don't have it and you can have, you know, you will look into it, you can get them that candidate next week. Don't say, yeah, I've got him, and then you run and like you try to find them and you don't find them and now you've let them down. And it's that basic sort of understanding is what we built Saqaya on, and having the expertise in house that we're not just like the recruiters like, oh, of course, yeah, I understand your, you know, all the architecture and all the stuff, and he has no idea what he's talking about. We actually have the people in house to understand it, are able to break it down, and then are able to say what we have, what does it do here, and what it doesn't do here. So we're involved in the decision making process of the client. So what we started off with clients in terms of we are now providing you with staff augmentation. It's now, as we developed our relationship, it's actually now the client gives us a call. I'm thinking of doing this. Can we have a round table? And then you can think out loud with us in terms of how we can deliver this. And we are literally from the inception stage involved. And we've seen that turn into a couple of very successful projects. The other thing as well that we're really investing in at the moment is something we call the Saqaya Academy. So a lot of clients in the UK, and we've got one who's sort of like, you know, medium-sized enterprise. They're always hesitant to recruit graduates because for them it's a cost. By the time they train them and develop them, and that guy or that girl figure out actually what is it they actually want to do in life, and they end up maybe leaving, or that is a huge risk for them, and it's a big cost nowadays, with everything. So they've always been hesitant. So
It's a long ramp up to add value.
yeah, and
Typically.
when we've met them, we've noticed that the team sort of average age was quite high. So we asked, do you have junior positions? And actually we did, but we sort of walked away from it because it wasn't going anywhere. So we said, all right, how about this? We now have a few senior engineers that work for you through us, and instead of expanding through senior engineers, how about we create an academy for you that is purely for your company based on your systems and what is it that you do. We could deliver a small curriculum, and then we have graduates in Egypt that we then put through this, let's say, 4-week course. This is exactly what you do, and our senior guys that work for you are the ones creating the curriculum and doing the assessment, and then selecting 2 people that go from university in Egypt straight away to working with a client in Europe, which is unheard of. Like for them, in Egypt, if you graduate, you have to work in the local companies and then you almost look for freelance gigs, on Upwork and a few things to build a bit of experience with working with clients in Europe, for example. And by the time you actually land a remote role, it takes maybe 8 years post-graduation. So this was a route for them to, how do we then fill in? Now we know what your entry point is, and we reverse engineer it into a curriculum, and we get these guys, and these guys now, their first knowledge of work is you. So we've tried that a year ago, and now those guys have been incredibly successful for this company. And
They're building another one.
we're doing a new academy, and even the client is like, their advertising is like, our graduates that we put through this academy are now the ones that are teaching the new graduates, joining us.
Okay.
And it became like almost
Perpetual.
organic,
Yeah.
at a much cheaper cost for them, which is why they've taken the risk and given us that trust to that. But it's been repaid in value for them. And all these guys that just graduated from university have gained amazing experience that they wouldn't have touched for at least
The quality of it as
7,
well.
8 years.
So, in my first week, when I joined, I said to Carl and Saif, I want to meet your biggest customers in my first week. I'll learn more about how we sell our services from speak to your customers, not from you. And they facilitated straight away, right?
And because you're like, you're selling this to me, and like, I'm not.
Well, I was going to actually say before, there was a really interesting point about saying no. So I always think you could tell a consultant says no. A consultant will say no to you. When you're pointing, you say yeah to everything. So anyone who says yes, that's a salesperson.
Yeah.
A consultant says no because you value that you won't want to let your client down. But on the academy, I went to see the client, and one of the most successful things they had done in the whole of business in the last 12 months was the success of the Saqaya Academy and the difference it was making, and how it would run again, and the quality of the people, and how they were getting juniors, but they were playing far, far beyond that role already.
Yeah.
And they literally were just like, it was brilliant. We want 3 more. We're going to start that process. And being new and hearing that kind of, because I've sold that solution. I've sold that solution in Capita under a business I took over there to turn around and placing UK graduates into blue chips, into like Bank of Ireland, RBS, and their graduate intake, and trying to get value. And our course was run by the British Computer Society, but really trying to impact on those businesses. And it was only really really big blue chip business who were used to taking those amount of graduates, and it was a big volume, long-term play. But to see this model work with immediate impact and give them lifeblood into the business and energy and ideas. And we've got 2 of the graduates.
Yeah.
The CTO was saying they're now coming to us and pushing us about what next, what to do, what we need to do, what we've seen. And he said, we haven't been getting that from our senior engineers. So the concept is really important for us.
I mean, any organization needs young blood to sort of, keep it fresh and, keep it that. And what we're trying to do is, give that, into companies here without the risk, but at the same time, I'll be honest with you. I mean, from my point of view, when I first came up with it, me and Cal, it was, we both came from Egypt and we came to the UK. We both, went to University of Manchester for our degrees, and then we became successful in different areas. And how do we then create that environment for people like us, maybe that didn't get the chance to travel, to Europe for this and get the opportunity? So how do we take the opportunity from Europe physically to Egypt, and being able to give those guys, you've got the talent, there's no now restrictions, there's no barriers for you to then explode in terms of reaching your potential across Europe with all these top companies. And, from what we see, it's, I always try to, when we get involved in any businesses, it has to make business sense, because, that's what keeps the lights on. We're all, money orientated and all that. But at the same time, does it do something for me on a personal level? The more you grow, the more that you realize it's not just about what you achieve success-wise in business.
It's fulfillment.
Yeah, 100%. And then when I meet these graduates, I'm like, I see myself, like, if I didn't have the means, or my family didn't have the means to send me here for a university degree, I would have been just like him. And back then, I would have never had a chance like he does. And he has that chance now, because we've put a framework that connects the two, Europe, in terms of the businesses and the enterprises, with these graduates in Egypt, and get them to have synergy and mutual benefit both ways. And that's what we're really trying to push across the board now.
Do you know, that's really, you've raised something really interesting. So I'm new in the business, right? We've had a conversation about funds revenue.
Yeah, no.
That just struck me as really odd.
Yeah.
Everything, the passion, like Cameron says, passion for the lives that they create of those, the delivery teams of our delivery hub in Cairo, and what we're doing and the lives we're creating. But also I'm seeing that how that's wrapped up in their duty. Like they're very proud of what they're doing. But equally, when Cal talks about doing the like almost to the point of being obsessed with really caring about the client and what to do. And I've always, you would have heard me say this back when we first worked together, you tell an awful lot about the business, about the conversations happening between the four walls. And no short money. One conversation about it. It's all about doing the right thing. It's all about solving problems. It's all about, are we really doing enough for people who work for us? How do we make that better? There's a passion for that.
Well, I think
that just struck me now. It's also
I've still got the black diaries, or I did do. I've not seen them for a while. Where we put in who we'd filled and all the interviews.
I found mine. I found mine, yeah.
Well, I went through them all the ones I placed, and I connected with them on LinkedIn. I just said, you probably don't remember me, but I placed you here. And every single one of them remembered and said what a good, how happy they were with all the process and everything like that. They made and I didn't ask for it, but they said, yeah, we definitely remember you.
Yeah. I still remember my first deal. Geraldine Smith at Micromass. She was a QA tester. I think I did it. I think there was three. I think there was three. I did labs, two at Micromass, one on lab systems, and I hadn't been on the S3 training. So I was sitting in S3 training, and then someone put the head down and said, "Is Gareth Jones here from Manchester?" So yeah, it's me. Like, obviously hungover, not been to bed, sitting next to Jay Lale, like trying to take this recruitment training in, absolutely giving no thought about it whatsoever, thinking this is easy. And someone goes, "Oh yeah, Rob Tillett, call from Manchester, you've just done your first deal." And I'm like looking around there with my guy, you hear what they just said? You hear that? I'm a bit good one. No one's picked up a phone yet, so I'd started a week earlier in Manchester and went down and done the training.
Do you know what? There's something I tell people all the time now. You probably might not remember it, but I got promoted in my first quarter, was the last quarter of the year with my luck. And, and there was a sort of a thing in Rullion that no one has ever hit their first quarter target. You needed to build 20,000 in the first quarter. So I started the quarter. Exactly. Even on there, like, everyone was saying that it's impossible, like it's a target, but then you hit it in your second quarter. I remember my first quarter, it was like end of November, and the guys were saying to me, "Oh, is that all you got?" I think I had like 8,000, and he's like, because there's no work in December, so
Yeah.
there's no way you fire, you're getting a job and you're placing it.
Oh, that's a charmer.
Yeah, well, exactly. Very motivator.
He's like this. He's getting his revenge on me.
Yeah. I remember Gus was talking to Stephen Eagle with Barclays, and he was talking, and I could hear him talking about Barclays had a campaign, and they were saying to him, we want you to have this campaign on exclusive, and then Gus was saying to him, mate, don't go about it the normal way, really tie him in, go for a retainer model, get money up front, so if these roles are yours, even if they change their mind, they have to stick with you, charge them a little bit less, but at least it's guaranteed, and you can get some revenue in now. So I'm like, that sounds like something I can do. And then I remember I was talking to Omer, and Omer said to me, what are you talking about? Like, just find CVs. And
God bless you,
I
man.
needed 12,000 to start before the end of December because I wanted to hit that 20K. And I remember there was a software house, very tiny, in like some really obscure area. And a lead came through. I got on the phone with them, and they had like 3 positions available or 4 positions available. And they were just discussing. I was like, and then in the call, I was like, I'll come see you tomorrow. And the guy was like, who are you? And I was like, you send me the location. I want to come. I want to understand the business so I can find you the best people. I'll come tomorrow. So they, said, all right, come down. And I went.
Did they say, are you coming all the way from Egypt?
And I really sort of I think I just poured my heart out because I was like, I just wanted to really win them over. And I was like, look, I'm in it with you. I'll do everything. But how about we do it this way? You guys are small, so I don't want to, you to pay the usual fees. How about we do a retainer?
Yeah.
And then this saves you cost. I'm in it with you. I'll come down here all the time to make sure that the positions are filled straight away. We'll get it all done within, a couple of months. And, and then they're like, hey, just give us the proposal. So I gave them the proposal. And I went back on the train to get back to Manchester. And I remember telling them, I said, mate, these guys are not going to even call you. And the next day, they're like, you know what, that sounds like a plan.
So good idea.
And I got my 12 grand in.
There we go.
And then, it was, and that's sort of, when you were saying before, it was like, instead of chasing top line, and that's the reason that we don't speak about revenue, is sometimes it's like, just focus on what you're trying to do. That will take care of itself. And back in the day, I used to really struggle with that. Because back in the day, it's like, no, I need to have numbers on the board. I need numbers. But it's like, it's almost like, I was watching Steve Jobs when it comes to, all the keynote speeches that he's done. And it's almost like he didn't care what's happening in the industry. That he would talk about what Apple was going to do.
Yeah.
Pricing wise, didn't match anything that was out there in terms of where it landed. In terms of what they were trying to do, it was never like, oh, this is really selling in the market, so let's do another version of it. No, but we're just going to focus on what we do. That takes care of itself. And that's how you lead the field. It's not by trying to lock the competition.
One thing I've always taken from, it was when I was working with Simon
Cook.
Yeah.
Simon Cook was, sure. Lily on that, that's a name from the past. Simon Cook was a great guy, and there's a lesson in leadership in that, which is Simon Cook I took over really, they've lost 400 grand. On my first day, we had to make people redundant, and I I know, man, they left me do it.
What have I done?
So they were kind of like, we might have over-egged the job. We've lost 400 grand. You're the guy to turn this round, right? And the permanent division needs to grow. So I started off with one resource, and it was me and him in the Yellow Pages, and we used to work Saturdays and Sundays, right? Yeah. And when I met him for the interview, he parked his car where I couldn't see because he was so embarrassed, right? And there's 2 things that came out of that experience, which is I felt so awful for them to make those ones. I thought, I'm never going to mess up. I'm going to, so I would read all business books, leadership books, not recruitment books, because I didn't want to let people down. But then the fact that Simon put he was a first-class graduate from Loughborough, put his careers, in my hands. I took that, and that's still something that meant the world to me. I think that's my bond with you, mate. It's like, there's someone I've got the utmost respect for you, and for everyone, like yourself as well as you. I respected the people that worked for me. You weren't pawns in my game, and I think that wasn't the norm in sales. It was like, these people are cannon fodder, we'll get another one, and like everyone else is out. It's like, I care deeply.
Different skills, being a good salesman to being a good salesman.
Yeah, so that I really wanted to do.
You must remember, how he was in terms of like he came in like a superstar. Once it grew, and you had like all these facade, he used to come in with like everybody sort of mimicking him in a way, trying to like get close to him. And then we had guys, and then we had like the team leaders, and we had the consultants, and then the resources was like he can't even see them when he walks in. And
it wasn't like that when I was there.
I remember like it was like I would be sat next to a mayor, and he would come talk to a mayor, and like I'm like invisible in the middle.
Yeah.
But then one time I was really competitive, and I used to like, if I feel hard done by, I used to really.
But that's one thing I used to look for.
Yeah.
Competitiveness is so important when that was the hiring. So that's a hiring thing. You can't hire people and make them competitive.
Yeah.
No.
So I used to look for people who are competitive. So people who used to go, oh, money, in interviews, they go, oh, I'm really money motivated. And like most places in Manchester in recruitment would go, great, you've got the job. Oh, this guy's money motivated. I didn't care, because there's going to get a point where money will be enough. So someone who loves winning can't win enough times. Just they still want to win. It's like Ronaldo. He's got all the money in the bank, right? Yeah. But he loves winning. That special DNA is what you want.
Well, do you remember what you did that day? He came in and he never talked to me before ever. Like it was like that, and he just came in and he just stopped. And guy stops and looks at you like start getting.
What
really scared. Exactly. I was so scared, and he's just like, why are you frowning? And I'm like, oh no. He's like, what's wrong with you? And then Omer was like, oh, it's He's like, and then even though I'm like invisible to him, he was like, come with me. And then he took me in his Range Rover, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm with guys in his Range Rover. Starbucks. And he sat me down and he said, mate, you can't go about life like this. You can't just let missed opportunities or something consume you and make everyone see how it's affecting you. You really need to just get on with it, and you just need to be like, believe in yourself that it's not that lead that makes or breaks.
Oh, do you know what it, before I say
anything to do that?
No, hang on, over though. This is, he did the same for me yesterday. He did that to me yesterday. He did that yesterday. That's the incredible thing. It's really strange.
It comes round, doesn't it?
What were you going to say about sound? Because someone asked me recently about cars, and I said, I'm not interested in cars. It's still the best car I've ever sat in my life. Sandy Cook went out and bought himself an M3, and he started and he believed in himself. I sat in that car and I cried my eyes out. I was so happy for him. But he was a really interesting character.
I worked for him, and he was an animal, like competitive animal.
Because he'd been the first one, so he got completely jonesy before anyone else.
But and I think I was a little bit older, which was probably a challenge.
You were older than him,
and
I think by a year, yeah.
I'm not someone that follows people either, which is an interesting concept. But he was always the top consultant in the first quarter. Yeah, because he was like, we work harder. The run up to Christmas and New Year, everyone takes the foot off the gas. Yeah, we work harder, and every year he was the top consultant. And now every year our best quarter is the first quarter. Yeah,
he was a winner. He was a winner. He was one of those people that, I regret like losing touch with people, but these were special people. But I'll give you for instance, in terms of like taking you for that thing, because I think my most important thing was the difference I was making to people's lives around the title that I had, right? I remember being in a board meeting, which used to be fun.
Can you imagine?
All right. Back in them days, because I'm a bit of an acquired taste. And then I remember coming out, and Paul O'Shaughnessy was a resourcer for Jody, right? And he had all this passion, but he was one of these people that if you lined up everything, he could do it. He was a natural, and I believed in him. But he just couldn't sort his life out. I remember coming out of this board meeting and then grabbing Shawnee's and taking him back to my place in Hale, and the pair of us listening to Tony Robbins, and to turn Shawnee's life around. Is it true? And then that was our lunch hour, and we had a quick sandwich, and we do that all the time, right? And he was a resourcer, and at this point, I think Rullion was like, turnover was 100 million, the team was 40, you had 10 in London. And then we was on my lunch hour in there taking the new resourcer back to the list of Tony Robbins. People must have thought absolutely crazy. But if you look at the individual, the Paul and the business that he's built in Sydney now. And not only is that a successful business, but that's a wonderful human who's navigated, like myself, was a professional sportsman, hit the booze, span out of control, and it's just turned out to be just like an absolute inspiration. So I'm really proud of the people that I was fortunate to sort of mix with, because they were far more talented than I was. They were far more bright. And I said, this guy's proving it right now. Him and Umair, he's incredible. I think that's the one thing is that the respect that I have makes it easier to work with him and Cal and make Saqaya a success, because the kind of everyone's brilliant. From everyone I've met in the business, they're brilliant at what they do, and they all care. So I've never met anyone at the moment with the ego is like the biggest thing about them, or being right or being wrong. Everyone's focused too much on caring about just getting it right. And it's so refreshing for me to be in that environment.
What was the lesson that I'd say is how I went about every single business, and I've seen why other businesses of like friends of mine that have tried it and like, failed, or, that didn't go their way. And it's the other side, it's so basic. But do you remember, like, you used to always, like, when you come to my desk and you say to me, what have you got on at the moment? I'll be like, oh, I'm trying, canvas this client and I'm trying to do this. And you're like, so how far did you go with it in the last 3 weeks? And I was like, oh yeah, I made a couple of calls. And then he's like, you said to me, the best thing for you to know is like when it smells like a fish and it looks like a fish.
I use that as well. That's it. Yeah.
And you know what? As soon as I start a business, it's like what you see. It's like when you first start a business, there's no playbook. There's no oh, you make these calls and you make this money, or like it's all open and so you can end up making 1,000 calls a day, go on 1 billion meetings, and make zero money. And that lesson was like, it's smelling. Is this real? Is this turning into money? And being able to make that decision quickly enough at every single stage is the difference between a successful business and a business that just ends up
shrewd, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, and smelling the money, and it's like I remember like I was there were guys in Rullion that would sort of stand up all the time to impress guys, on the phone as if they're like traders, like non-stop. And then I'll be like, oh man, should I stand up? So he's like,
do you start trying to
exactly? And when I say that, mate, Gus doesn't care about this guy standing up making 1,000 calls. He just cares about this board. Just get the numbers on the board. Trust me.
I think
you can be silent all day. He will love you. Yeah.
I think one thing about that environment, right, was how different the personalities were. So I know if you walked into any of our competitors at that time, he was like a cookie cutter. Here's your recruiter with a big fat kipper tie who's out in All Bar One or Pinch Your Piano on a Thursday, and they all look the same and they all do all that, right? So if they were around now, they'd all be doing paddle and whatever, right? Okay. They were all the same, right? They were all the same, right? Looked at our team and it was just covered together, just like people who were very different personalities. DNA-wise, they were the same. So Catherine Wood had come, it was a son who was a resourcer.
Yeah.
And she's, now, was she the same kind of person as Simon Cook? Very, very different to him and Chris Evans. Chris Evans has been hugely successful as well. He's a great guy. But Catherine had that drive, but it was hidden. And she really cared and trying to help her make her first steps in her career. And look, she's gone on to do wonderful things. She sat at Microsoft, a fortunate, wonderful, talented career. And because she didn't have to, she could be her in that environment. Like Amy Turner was completely different to Umair, James Davis, who's the CEO now, had been fired from 3 recruitment jobs because he didn't tell anyone that he had dyslexia.
Yeah.
And I was sitting next to him on his first day, and I was like, you're dyslexic, aren't you? And he burst out into tears, and I went, listen, don't worry. I think you're fantastic. I said, so there's always a way around it. So what we'll do is I'll write everything for you. You just use these templates.
Yeah.
I said, but you're brilliant on the phone. So all the emails you ever need to write are just change the guy's name and use templates, but just do it. And that's why I used to do incredible phone time. You know, James is a CEO, has been CEO of a number of recruitment businesses, and more power to him. You know, he's a gentle, wonderful soul who did care about, you know, clients and outcomes before the recruitment industry did. He's a lovely guy, James.
One thing I remember is from the team is that you were quick to highlight the positives and the differences between, and we'd all then go, "All right, yeah, that is funny. It's not annoying, it's funny, or it's good, or that's what makes him good." And then we'd all like get interested in it, and then so there's a bit of bonding through the differences that really kind of bonded us all together.
Yeah, I think you've also got to. I think you've got to walk the walk, which is. I don't need to be careful what I say, but
you were still ruthless when it came to it.
You have to be as a leader.
There was a conveyor belt of people coming in. It's not like everyone you made us, you know, everyone is your best friend.
Well, I was on my gardening leave. I was probably a little bit disruptive in the group, and I just kind of said, right, I think you need to do the rest of it at home.
Do you know what he did to me one time? We used to play the five-a-side with everyone at Rullion, right?
Right.
And then I tore my ACL in that game after the
2-foot challenge.
No, he wasn't there. So he took me to hospital. They did the scan. They're like, it got. Yeah. And I couldn't even stand on my phone. I was living by myself, and it was snowing. So the next day, like I was at home, I called in sick, and then so that's 2 days after I've just torn my ACL. I can't walk.
Yeah.
He called me, and he's like, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm at home, guys." Like, did you not hear? I tore my ACL. He's like, "So, are you not able to make calls?" You make calls with your knee.
I've just had a flashback. Like James, he had his wisdom teeth out. Do you remember that?
James David.
Yeah. And he wanted like 3-4 days off. But you said, Simon, you just had the afternoon off, didn't you? And he went, yeah. Stop being such a wuss. And he was in the next day.
He came and picked me up from my flat. He was like, "Where are you?" I was like, "What's the problem?" I was like, "Guys, I can't walk." I was on crutches, and it was snowing. It was like all the time. And he's like, "All right, I'll come pick you up." And then he came to us, picked me up, took me to the office. So the next day, I'm like, I don't know what to do. And then I rang him. I was like, "Man, I don't know what to do." He's like, "He's not going to come pick you up again, you know. He's expecting you now to come in." So I'm there in crutches.
The chauffeur service.
It took me from my flat. I was like a 5-minute walk from the tram stop. It took me 40 minutes to get there with the snow, and but I got into the office.
Well, look what it took. Yeah. Look what a great business leader you are now.
I'm conscious of time.
Yeah.
Because we've gone on for a while. I would love to carry this on for another few hours talking about stories, but I really appreciate you guys coming on. I really want to kind of keep an eye on Saqaya and what's going on, because I think it's an important part of the transition in technology and delivery of that. So thank you for coming.
No,
thanks for having us. Yeah, it's been a wonderful morning. It's lovely catching up.